Hey, you have Patrick Findaro here, co-founder at Vetted Biz. Very excited to have on AJ Titus, who comes from probably the biggest, if not one of the biggest families in franchising. And their group, United Franchise Group, has, I believe, 12 brands. He'll correct me if that number is wrong. And AJ is the president of Signarama, which we'll talk about the Signarama franchise, been around 30 plus years, founded in Long Island, New York, where my parents are from as well, and migrated like my family's done from New York to Florida. So we're going to talk all about AJ's background in franchising, why he decided to stay in franchising, Signarama franchise, a little bit about the printing and signage industry, as well as just the franchise industry as a whole. So AJ, thanks a lot for joining today. Appreciate it.
I appreciate the invite, Patrick. And it's funny. So if you're from New York and you're moving to Florida, you have to do the halfback, which means you're going to move to South Carolina or North Carolina. So my dad and my mom already have a house in North Carolina. So they're almost in that halfback phase. But it
I've
seems like the
heard that, and
rotation of New Yorkers.
it seems like a lot of people also like they want to be in like the mountains of South Carolina or North Carolina, escape the warm summers down here
Yep.
in South Florida.
Oh yeah, no, we're definitely, my parents are there, but I'm a Floridian. I'm very passionate about that. I wasn't born in New York. I still have family in New York, but I'm a born and raised Floridian.
So AJ, talk a little bit about your background and a bit about your family and this family business and how you got involved and what kept you involved.
Yeah, so I mean, my grandfather, Roy Titus, he started Minuteman Press, and my uncle, my cousins, my both my uncles and my cousins are still involved with that business. But my dad started Signarama, so our whole family knows nothing about, nothing. They know nothing of a world without franchising, right? So my grandfather started Minuteman. My uncle's in the business. My cousins are in the business. I have two younger brothers in the business with me. I have three cousins here in West Palm in the business and United Franchise Group. And so, I don't know a world where we weren't involved with franchising. My dad, he says all the time, his sixth grade school paper was how to start a franchise company, because he just grew up in presses and grew up with my grandfather and learned that way. And so he moved the company from New York to South Florida, and I did whatever was told, right? I mean, you did what you do in a family run business, where ours was just a franchise business. And so you would sweep the floors, you'd stuff brochures, you do whatever they told you to do. My mom and my dad told me to do. And so it's been really fun to be a part of the growth of the business, from just being just Signarama to adding Embroid Me, which became fully promoted. And now to have the dozen brands that we have, it's been really fun to watch that growth.
And when did you start like informally working? Were you in like 10, 11 years old?
I don't know if I can say this without
Yeah.
consulting a lawyer. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I used to work the summers, and so we would work locally for our franchise owners. I would do outside sales and marketing. I would go door to door selling signs. My dad actually taught me how to sell signs. He drove me to a shopping center. He dropped me off. He said, "Go sell signs," and he drove away. That's how he taught
That's
me, right?
awesome.
And so,
Yeah, I mean, you're
uh,
going to learn a lot of interpersonal skills, business skills going through that process.
oh yeah, it was definitely baptism by fire, but I learned a lot, and I learned a lot from our franchise owners. And that's how it kind of started, and then worked in franchise development on the phones, and then worked in the office doing random things, and then became, worked in support, worked in franchise sales, worked executive vice president roles for Jim Tatum, who was our last president, and then became president. So it's been pretty much a life sentence, and it's a good life sentence. I'm very happy about that.
And what like did it ever cross your mind just like skipping college? Cause like probably by the time you were 18, it was like you're advanced at like the career of like a 24, 25-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely crossed my mind. I definitely brought it up to my dad. It was definitely shot down really quickly. But to the point where I actually got my undergraduate, and then I went and got my MBA as well. So I enjoyed school, but definitely leaving high school and my freshman year of undergraduate, I was kind of like, I learned a lot more working in the business and working
Doing
for our
it.
franchise owners. Yeah, we're doing it, living it.
And that's what it seems like. Franchising is like a perfect almost like MBA or continuing education, like for whether it's a corporate executive or someone that was running a small business, but it was like just overwhelmed and doing way too much, no one to lean on?
Well, I love franchising because at the end of the day, you're learning about the industry. So I'm a sign person, but I'm really not a sign person. I'm a business person. And I help business owners grow their business and learn their industry. And we build a community. And so that's why it becomes like an MBA, because you're learning so many different things. I traveled internationally. We have franchise owners all over the world. And so I'm learning international business. I'm working directly with franchise owners, reviewing their financials and learning how to read financials. I mean, you're digging into marketing, technology with websites and point of sale systems and CRM systems. And so there's no better way to dig in and learn a lot about the business world than franchising. I mean, I'm biased, obviously, Patrick, but I really enjoy.
Is
Um,
that what kind of drew you? Because I imagine it was like partly opportunistic, like going with Signarama, being the president. Because there's other brands that you could have like dived in. Is part of it like Signarama? You're constantly learning all the time from
well,
the clients that you serve,
so it
or
was two things. So my dad never forced us to join the business. He never said you
yeah,
have to join the business. You know, he was very open and said do what you enjoy doing. He encouraged us to join for a little bit to learn, like I just said, but he said, "Look, if you're not into this, do what you love to do. You got to enjoy and be passionate about it. This is what I'm passionate about. Doesn't mean it's what you're passionate about." And so we're lucky that all of us, my brothers and I and my three cousins are passionate about this, which is great. But it may not have been that case. I was drawn to Signarama because the sign business was so intriguing. It's creative. It's a need based business. It's not like I'm not selling a product that people don't need, a luxury car or something like that. People need and use business signage every day. They everywhere you walk, you see signs. So it's like the most public secret out there in terms of the industry. It's a huge business, and so I
and the
enjoyed that.
margins are huge. Like there's that one French company, I think it's JC Dassault, like where they do like the advertisements on all the like the bus
Yeah.
stations, and like their profit, they've been running for years, and their profit margin's huge.
Yeah, I mean and the sign business, it's historical too. So, not that long ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, there was none of the equipment we have today. And people were hand painting signs. I mean, it was a very artistic business, and there are still people within Signarama who did that. They hand painted signs 40 years ago. And there are people who had, a plotter but no digital printer. And so it's really evolved rapidly over these last 40 years and we've been a part of that. But it's been fun to watch that too. And as technology continues to grow, we're seeing the evolution even faster now. So,
And what I see, like from, I live pretty close to the beach here in Miami Beach. You're up in West Palm, but there's this boat that's always coming by with a sign. And I feel like in the digital era, you're when you're on your phone so much, I'm more attentive to things advertising that's not on my phone, because on my phone I'm constantly being inundated by just marketing and different
sure.
copy images, where if I see something in real life, it like does catch my attention.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, our core products are growing too. So, like for instance, after COVID, more and more mobile businesses or more and more businesses are adding a delivery service to it. And so what does that mean? We're wrapping more vehicles. It means we're putting more graphics on
Yeah.
vehicles. I mean, the signage changes, but the business doesn't, right? So, like grocery stores are completely revamping how they do things because delivery and pickup are so much bigger. And so they have to change all of those different products. So, we're working on with them to redesign their facilities and we're doing that and that's all products we sell. It's just different than what we were selling 3 years ago.
What's it like on the data side? Like, are the Signarama franchisees, these hundreds of Signarama franchisees, able to give like good feedback and like even strategy to their business clients, like as they think about signage?
We're working on that every day to try to get better data for our franchise owners. We're not where I want us to be, candidly, but we're working on it and we're building that. But there is good data points that they can share with what is popular, what signs are selling. They can give information about what type of signage sticks out more. We actually did a test years ago. This was in I don't know 2006, 2007, around that time. Not great timing, obviously, but we did a test with online ordering and design. And what we found is our customers are terrible at designing signs. And they
Yeah.
might think they are good at it, but they're not. And so, for instance, a graphic designer may want to spend hours and hours designing this beautiful logo or this beautiful sign where they just need a no parking sign. It needs to be block letters in red on white. That's it. Like it doesn't need to be that intense, right? When you put black against a navy blue black background, you're not going to see the black letters as well. And so there is an art to designing signs, and there is an art to designing graphics that catch your attention. And that's what we're doing with our customers is they're coming to us with a need, and they might have an idea in their head, but we might be asking questions, well, how big do you want those letters? What colors do you want them? Because
What's
do
the
you want,
intent?
yeah. Well, especially if it's a vehicle, because if it's a vehicle, you have a couple seconds and then you don't see it anymore. So what information do you want to get across in those couple seconds? Your name, the phone number, an email, the website, whatever it is, that needs to be front of mind and in a spot where people can read it and see it quickly.
A lot of these mobile, like, I just had someone on from a mosquito franchise, and I just imagine, do you guys sell to your services to other franchises? Because
Oh
so
yeah,
many of the mobile units are actually franchise
all
companies.
the time. No, and what we have found is franchisees like doing business with franchisees because they can relate. So a Signarama franchise owner may go to the local mosquito franchise and say, "Hi, I'm a franchisee as well." Oh my gosh, well, let's do business together. And they know that their
Yeah.
graphics and design and everything there's a standard. It's actually a lot easier to do business with a lot of people too.
And I mean, imagine like you go to a Chipotle, corporately owned and managed. There's an issue. The manager is just not going to treat it the same way as if it was a food franchise where the owner is there and like the customer is right, and he's going to
Yeah.
make things good, and like he feels such big ownership because he is the owner of that business.
Franchising gives the business a soul. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with, and look, there's nothing wrong with Chipotle or there's nothing wrong with big corporate models or anything like that. But in my opinion, when you want to work with someone and you want to keep the money in the community, that's what franchising does. And you get the benefit of having a big corporate name and the structure behind you, but it's your business and it's locally owned. So that's the big piece that I enjoy about franchising. And our franchise owners, they do business with people like that.
It's probably easier too, just like setting the culture. Where I can imagine, like as you scale up a business, like setting the corporate culture down, as opposed to like the owner. Even if the owner scales up to have 5 locations, he's still going through, and he's the one that sets the culture, makes major decisions on hiring, training, even firing.
Yep. No, and we want to give our corporate culture to our franchise owners, so it becomes harder in a lot of ways. But in the same way, we want them to take what we have and customize it to their area and to their business. And we're pretty flexible when it comes to franchises. There's some franchise owners who are very strict, and franchise companies who want you to stay the same way. We don't really control the pricing. We have a standard package and training and our support and everything, and the system works. We can go through the numbers and we know the system works, but we also want you to be, you know, design your own business. So like, for instance, our store in Dallas might have a image of the Dallas skyline. That's totally fine because the store is in Dallas. Another franchise may not like that, but that's how we kind of do things.
And it seems like you guys are much more transparent than like, for example, some of the fitness franchises I go through. Like you have to buy all the equipment from the franchisor, and you're buying it every 3 years,
Ugh.
and you're paying a lot of money on the royalty. They're handling the marketing. They're taking a cut of that fee. How are you at Signarama like dealing with the royalty, marketing, and any other fees? Like how does it work, and how do you guys ensure that you remain aligned with the franchisee's success?
Well, we have a scaled royalty structure. So it goes
Right.
6%, 4%, 2%. So the more sales that a franchise owner does, they actually pay us less percentage wise. And so, we think that that's very fair. In the same
You don't
breath,
see that. I'd say
yeah,
that's like 5-10% of the cases
yeah,
where it scales down like that.
yeah. We want to basically that's our give back to our franchise owners. We want them to do well, and we want them to be incentivized to build their business and do well. And once they hit levels, they can actually scale down the percentage, which is great. We always look at our fees, Patrick, to make sure that we're aligned and that we're fair. Everyone's got to make money. If the
Sure.
franchisor has got to be successful and make money to build the brand, but not at the expense of the franchisee. The franchisee has to make money and build their business, because if they don't do that, we wouldn't have a franchise at all. Because guess what's going to happen? Someone who wants to buy a franchise is going to call that person and say, "Are you making money?" And if the answer is yes, that's great. If the answer is no, they're probably not going to buy the franchise. So, that's a big piece in what we look at.
So yeah, just really making sure that the unit level economics are there, and that there's alignment in terms of the incentive structure.
Oh yeah.
And tell me a little bit about your franchisees, because it's like your brand's been around for so long. I understand the average franchisee's over 10 years in
hmm
the system.
Yeah, I mean, I've grown up with a lot of the franchise owners, as weird as that may sound. A lot of them have my cell phone. We're very casual in terms of our relationship. We want to build relationships that are long term with our franchise owners. So if someone calls me on a Saturday, I pick up and I talk to them. I was completely overwhelmed. My wife and I, we just had a baby two months ago, and so just overwhelmed with
Congrats.
notes and gifts and things from
Yeah.
franchise owners. And it's just they didn't have to do any of that, but they did, because we have that relationship, and we've built that. And so um, I whenever there's a big decision I have to make, I have our franchise advisory council that I talk to. But on top of that, I have some key franchise owners I've known my entire life that I'll give a call and say, "Wow, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think?" And they trust me to give me an honest answer, and I trust them to give them an honest answer back. And that's a healthy relationship when that happens. And so, I travel quite a bit. So everywhere I travel, I try to get breakfast at least with someone. If I'm traveling personally, if I'm traveling for
It's
business,
fun.
obviously I'm going there to see them. So, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And in terms of like the franchisee level performance, I don't know to the extent that you can talk about it, but I was looking at one of your old FDDs, and it was like very clearly the top performers have an outside salesperson, and they're doing pretty well.
yep,
I saw like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then if you don't have an outside salesperson selling to the businesses, it's like significantly less. And that's not that common, where people really break down like a key performance like metric like that and make it like so clear to current franchisees as well as prospective franchisees.
yeah. We do it not only for our prospective franchise owners, but for our existing franchise owners, because we know if you follow the system and you have a full time outside sales rep, you are going to be more successful. You're going to make more money. You are going to have more sales, and it's drastic, and we want to show how drastic that is. And in the same breath, there are some franchise companies who have, you know, quotas for X amount of sales you have to do in a certain time period. We're not like that. If someone wants to run their business and it's a family run business and they do a $500,000 and they do, whatever, and they make the money they want to make, God bless. There's
Yeah.
zero problem with
Okay.
that. But we also don't want to make that seem like that's the average. And I tell that to people on Discovery Day tour. If you want to run the system the right way and work hard, this is what you can do. This is what you can build to. If you don't, just know what you're getting into. Just know what the deal is. And so we want to be upfront and tell people that's where we're coming from.
And do most of the franchisees in the system just have one location they're owning and operating, or do they have multiple locations? How's the structure look like?
Yeah, we're vast majority is a mom and pop, one location. Mom and pop may not be the right term, but just family owned and operated one business. Because the sign business you can scale pretty easily. It's not like a
You
food
don't have to
business.
be opening up like a second
No,
location. Like
we
you
have
can,
some
yeah,
that do. They want to take advantage of markets, so we do have some multi-unit franchisees. But what's great is our franchise owners, they scale with equipment, they scale with different capabilities, they network with more people, and so they build their business that way, and they can scale it that way. They don't need to scale from the physical locations. I think there's opportunity to do that, and there's going to be more of that down the road. I believe that that's the trend in
yeah.
franchising. But most of our franchise owners, they're just independently owned and operated with one location.
And how much does it cost to open up a Signarama?
So all in, it's around 225 in that range, and that
Okay.
includes the franchise fee, 49.5. So I think we're right there with most retail franchises. It's, I think, affordable from that perspective. But in the same breath, we're not looking for class A retail space either.
Yeah.
We want to have parking, we want to have street frontage, we want to have a very clean professional location people can go to, but you don't need to be in a busy mall and spend thousands and thousands of dollars a month on rent, right? That's not what we're looking for either.
How do you help them get the site, like the lease executed and get up and running fast?
Well, we have an in-house real estate and construction team that helps in that regard, so we expedite a lot of that for the franchise owner. We do it in tandem with them. So when we decide, hey, this is what we want to do, and the franchisee says, hey, this is I want to do this, great. All right, what are your top 3 locations? Okay, what let's us find locations for those top 3 cities that you want to be in, and you find some, and let's get together and let's see. And usually, what we find is that most of the
Same
cities
one.
are the
There's some
same.
overlap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most of the locations are the same, so which is very funny, but we wanna make sure that
I
we're
like that exercise.
yeah.
It's like builds trust and like that you're aligned.
Well, yeah, we want we th this is their business, right? We're
Yeah.
partners in the franchise, but this is their business, so we wanna make
Yes.
sure from the get-go that this is not a we're demanding you to do something or we're telling you to do something. This is a collaborative thing. Of course, we have standards and we have to abide by the standards, but in the same breath, you're gonna sink or swim of how hard you work the system or not, and you need to know that.
That's well said. And what's like your ideal franchisee, or what's kind of like a profile of some of the most successful franchisees? Were they entrepreneurs in the past? Are they corporate executives, sales skills?
Well, mostly it's marketing and sales. So someone who is good with people, can shake hands, sales driven, but it that's typical with Signarama that we teach them the industry and they sell. Now, in the same
Yes.
breath, we do have very operationally minded people who have hired salespeople. So as long as there's a focus on sales, whether that be the franchise owner or they hire a salesperson, it's someone who's focused on growth. That's what we really want.
And how are new franchisees financing this? Is it just all cash, 200, 250K, or are they taking an SBA loan? How do they finance this investment?
It's all over the place, Patrick, but usually it's a they pay the franchise fee and then they finance the rest either by an equipment lease, working with different equipment leasing companies or the SBA. Some is all cash as well, but it's really all over the place at this point. But yeah.
And how's it been with COVID? I mean, we didn't have it so much, especially in Miami. Like, kind of joke like, what COVID? Like, life was kind of normal the whole time. But for your franchisees across the United States, like, how did COVID affect this market?
Well, COVID affected every market differently, and I'm looking internationally as well. So we have stores in New Zealand, Australia, France, Canada, the US. It's all over the place in terms of every country's response to COVID, and even within our country with different states, it's been a different response. But you know, a franchise owner joked with me the other day. He said, "If you would have told me 3 years ago we would be doing a lot of social distancing stickers, more vehicle graphics, acrylic barriers, I would have laughed at you." But we just pivoted, right? We actually had two of the last 2 years have been our 2 best years ever, almost. And so, you know,
Yeah, I saw your 2020 financials, and I was like, "Damn, that's pretty strong."
yeah, and
I thought it was going to be a much lower than it was.
no, we are definitely blessed by the industry. We can pivot very quickly. A lot of our franchise owners had some of their best years. We just had our conference, and a lot of our franchise owners celebrated records, monthly records, yearly records, and so, we're blessed on that response. Now, not every franchise owner feels that way too, and that's the part that really it stinks for me because I can look at the top line and say, "Wow, this is great." We're doing really well, but then there's some franchise owners who don't feel the same way that were in different regions
Well,
around the world or the
I'm sure
country.
like certain parts of California, like they got hit on the revenue side, and then like labor costs must be like double or at least 50% more than where we are in Florida. So they're
Oh
getting
yeah.
hammered on both sides.
Well, and that's our challenge now, and I think this is everyone's challenge is people and product. That's really our two biggest challenge, our franchise owners' two biggest challenges right now. And I think that's everyone is that I'm not telling you anything new, but what's unique about us is we're so custom. So and we can train the business. I had a franchise owner joke with me before. She said like if you know how to put a sticker on something, you can be a sign maker, right? And that's maybe oversimplifying it, but
Yeah.
in the same breath, it is a trainable business, and it is something that we do have some flexibility where it's not necessarily we're looking for one specific person.
AJ, are there any particular regions that you're excited about expanding in the US or even abroad for Sinorama?
Uh, well, it is a good that's a good question. We're looking in Europe. There's a lot of markets in Europe that we need to grow. We are really doing a great job. Our master partner in France is doing an excellent job. I think there's growth potential in the UK as well, but then there's markets within Europe that we haven't grown as much as we should. And so that's definitely a market in general, with multiple countries in Europe. In the US, the Pacific Northwest, we need to continue to grow. We don't have a store in Oregon, so we definitely can. So
Huh.
if you're hearing this podcast and you're from Oregon, please give me a call. But
Yeah.
we do well in the Northeast, in Florida and Texas and California, but there are some pockets within the U.S. that we could have stores or more stores in, for sure.
And like compared to like an independent operator that's in the same industry, how are you helping your franchisees, or the franchisees even helping themselves like collectively with the labor as well as the supply chain cost of goods sold?
Well, so that's the best part about franchising is the network. So we have our franchisee Facebook group. We have multiple tools that people can communicate. We try to get our franchise owners together as much as possible through regional meetings, through conferences, because we want them communicating. Because I can't tell you the amount of stories I have of an employee that wanted to move to another state or another country and then called the local Signarama and then now works for the Signarama in Australia and they were in California. Or uh, I know of an employee that worked in the store in West Palm actually when I worked there, and then is now working for a store in Washington. And so there's a
Oh,
ton of
wow.
stories like that. And that only happens with networking and only happens with passing people to other people. And that's how it works. And so we do a lot of that cultivating with our franchise owners to connect and to work together. A lot of them have shared product over the years. They bulk bought products and things of that nature and sold them off and helped other franchise owners. They might do a group buy together in certain regions. I know a group of franchise owners just did a wrap class where they learned how to wrap vehicles. And so they worked with a local rep from a supplier and said, hey guys, we're going to pay for this. Everyone come in, or we're going to split this. And so that's a huge part of franchising. And so you want to cultivate that and facilitate those types of meetings.
And besides the Facebook groups, do you also have like monthly meetings, in-person meetings annually? How do you further cultivate those connections in the franchise community?
Yeah, so we have our yearly meeting. So annually, we have our meeting with the ISA show. So the International Sign Association. We invite everyone, any franchise owner around the world can come to that. And on top of that, we do regional meetings. They should be quarterly. They don't always happen quarterly, but they should be quarterly. And then on top of that, there's a lot of franchise owners who are part of something we call P3 groups. And these are 5 to 7 franchise owners. They meet twice a year, 3 times a year, and it's an accountability group. They share their profit and loss statement. They hold each other
Nice.
accountable. They talk through business. And so we help facilitate some of those groups around the country as well.
Yeah, my brother and I are part of entrepreneur organization. We found that super helpful. There's other ones like YPO,
Yep.
but I think that, being part of like a cohort where you can be super transparent and kind of learn from each other's experiences really helps grow the business, whatever
Oh,
business you're
yeah.
in. And are there shared learnings like from Signarama with the other brands in the United Franchise Group portfolio?
Oh, yeah. We do. We do what we actually call sales boot camp. And that's just how do you sell? Just basic sales tools, sales tactics. Any business you're in, you're selling. And so through UFG, we'll actually do that for all the brands. And so if they want to do it, it's virtual. They want to come in and do sales training. They want to put their staff, their new salesperson through sales training. They can do that as well. We also have our UFG Expo. We kind of have it like the Olympics, and it happens every 3 or 4 years. And so that all brands are invited to that. And so we did our one 2 years ago at in West Palm Beach, and we're doing a bracket where franchise owners vote on what cities will be the the World Expo location in
That's
I guess
fun.
in
How
24.
many franchisees are part of the whole group, and then how many are in Signarama?
So in Signarama, we have around 750 in that range. Overall, we have about 1,600 franchise owners between all the brands. So it's been a lot of fun to do that.
AJ, we'll be sure to put your contact or at least a link to the website, whatever you're willing to share
Great.
in the description
Yeah.
and call notes. But do you recommend that someone that wants to get into franchising and they're interested in Signarama solely focus on Signarama, look at some of the other brands in the United Franchise Group portfolio? How do you recommend, candidates are looking to get into franchising?
Well, it depends, right? You know, it's not a one size fit all answer, but what I would tell you is there's a lot of people, actually, a vast majority of our franchise owners, they don't come in saying, "Man, I can't wait to open up a sign business," right? They didn't
Yeah.
grow up thinking about that, but it's something that they want to open up their own business. They're interested in franchising, and then we teach them and we talk to them about the industry. And so that's something that we start with. So I would prefer someone to come in through Signarama, and our regional vice presidents, they know all the other brands. So once they're talking to someone and that's saying what they want, they will say like, "Oh, well, I'm interested in business brokerage." "Oh, well, we have a business brokerage franchise. It's called
Yeah,
Transworld." And
big one.
so yeah, so there's things like that that happen all the time.
Well said. AJ, any closing thoughts for someone that's looking to get into franchising or owning a Signarama?
Oh, two different questions, Patrick. No, but the someone who's looking to get into franchising, you want to partner with a franchise that has a proven track record, that's been around for a long time. Then there's so many different franchises. Don't get overwhelmed with the thousands of different franchises out there. Really do your research, look at it, call people, talk to them. How people treat you in the franchise sales process is how they're going to probably support you. So keep that in mind. So if you don't get calls back, if you don't get, you know, that might be an indicator of, hey, I might not be, you know, supported in the right way. In the same breath, you should look at the FDDs. You should look at all these things. Build a personal relationship with the person you're talking with, and don't get inundated with the industry. Look for the right fit as a company first. Okay, that's what we do. I talk with people all the time, and they dig into, well, talk to me about the sign business. Well, wait a second. Before we get into the sign business, talk to me. I want to know you first. And I want you
Yeah.
to learn me a little bit more, because we're going to be doing business for a long time together. And so it doesn't
Yeah,
matter if
what's
we're
the contract? 35 years?
35 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
And like you guys aren't going anywhere now, basically third generation, and
yep.
where a lot of franchise systems like are changing hands like every 2 to 6 years.
Yeah, we're not looking for that. You know, at the end of the day, my daughter Abigail, she's 2 months old. She's got to, you know, take over for me. So I've got at least 18 to 20 more years here. So I'm just kidding. Unless my dad tells me so. But no, when you're looking at franchising, look at the business first and then the industry second, right? From a Signarama perspective, I'm totally biased, but I don't think there's any more creative, vibrant business than the sign industry right now. You know, there's not a business you can get into where you don't have a ton of online competitors. None of the big players want to deal with it because it's so custom. And you can charge whatever you want based on your location and the value you're giving, because every product is so different. So you're not going to get shopped around like other products do. And so it's a great time to get into the sign business. It's probably the best time in my lifetime it's been to get into the sign business. And, you know, we couldn't be happier and more excited about where we're headed and where our franchise owners are headed as a brand, because it's been crazy in a good way. It's been very, very busy. So I'm thrilled for that.
Well, for anyone that's interested in exploring Signarama or any of the United Franchise Group brands, we'll definitely be sure to include links so they can get into contact. And whoever's listening in Oregon, give AJ a call.
Please.
So you can open up
Call
a
my cell.
Signarama. Awesome, AJ. Well, I really appreciate your time today. And again, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks, Patrick. I appreciate the invite.